It's time to get all set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics with your hosts, Scott Williams and Jeff Traylor.
When I hear the coffee brewing, I think, what the heck we doing? Because I got barely any sleep last night. As the diaper bag I pack with Hot Wheels dollies and some snacks, I say a prayer there'll be a seat in the crime room this time. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.
Welcome to All Set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics to be a little more prepared for Sunday Mass. My name is Scott Williams. My co-host is Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Scott.
What's up, man?
Just feeling fancy again. We got our new setup, our fancy mics. It's like I'm a real boy now.
Yeah.
I've got a real
We
podcast.
almost have a setup. We're still using a webcam. So
That's true.
Whatever.
That's true. We're working towards it. We're growing up.
Yeah.
We're in our adolescent podcasting phase.
Exactly. We're growing older, but not up.
Yes.
We need to confirm
I'm
the
growing out.
podcast.
It's a Jimmy Buffett quote.
Thanks. I forgot about how you. Oh, did you know Scott's a parrot head?
It's true. Anyways, we have two Jeffs here.
Oh, yeah.
Dufresne as well. Hello, Father Jeff. How are
Great
you?
names.
Father
doing
Dufresne,
well.
I should say.
Good to be here.
You prefer Father Dufresne over Father Jeff, don't you?
I do,
I know.
if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you can be honest. Please call me Mr. Williams from here on out.
I will.
I'm kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm just kidding. Don't call me that.
Just don't call me late to dinner, am I?
Man,
Heyo.
what were we talking
Yeah,
about?
It's good to be back.
We have a podcast.
Oh yes, we do have a podcast.
All set for Sunday.
It's been such a joy. I've just realized that it gets more fun every
It really does.
quarter.
Sometimes I look at the calendar and I think, I've got a bunch of stuff we need to do, but like these are like my favorite moments of our week
Mhm.
when we get to just walk away and do this and talk about the scripture. It just forces us to do it. It's great.
Yep.
That's why we don't even publish these. It's just little do our guests know that.
Wait,
it's
what?
You and I. I'm just kidding. These mics are made of cardboard.
All right. Well, are we ready for the 2-minute drill?
I think we are.
Let's do it.
All right.
What week are we doing?
The 12th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
That's right.
Yeah. So our first reading comes from Job chapter 38. So God speaks to Job out of a whirlwind, right?
There's always money in the banana stand.
You're what?
There's always money in the banana stand.
George Oscar Bluth?
Yeah.
Yes. There's literally money in the banana. He asked Job God asked Job who enclosed the sea behind the doors when it burst forth from the womb. And he describes how he set boundaries for the sea, commanding it to stop at a certain point. And so he emphasizes that he has control over nature, control over all these chaotic forces, and just asserts his authority to us and says, I got this. I got these controls. I just showed you. Pay attention. Our responsorial psalm then, our psalm is from Psalm 107. Give thanks to the Lord. His love is everlasting.
Oh man.
It's a pretty solid one. There's nothing like jumping out at me to.
You don't think it's a banger?
I don't sing it. What would you? I mean, the words are all there.
Thanks for the Lord, for his love is everlasting. It's not.
I've not
coming
heard
to you?
that version yet.
That's it.
It's not ringing a bell.
But the good news is that's not our only option. We also have
You could do Hallelujah if you want.
Hallelujah. There you go.
Oh, there
That's
we
a
go.
banger. Always a banger.
Always a banger.
Constant banger. Hallelujah. How's that pillow going
It's
for you
not
over
working
there,
out for me.
Scott?
I was trying to avoid it for a minute and I just couldn't.
He's like, I'm just be honest.
I
Yeah.
was enjoying watching you in that wrestling match over there. Our second reading then comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, 14 to 17. So Paul explains that Christ's love compels believers because he died for everyone. So everyone should live for him, right? His love compels us to follow him. He highlights that believers should no longer live for themselves, but for Christ, because he was died and was raised for us. And he asserts that believers are a new creation in Christ. The old is gone, the new has come. And this transformation means that we get to see others and life itself from a renewed spiritual perspective. We have a whole new lease on life because
Yeah.
of the sacrifice of Christ. And then our gospel reading,
One of my favorites.
this gospel.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Our gospel is Mark chapter 4, 35 to 41. On that day, as the evening drew on, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us cross to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took Jesus with them in the boat, just as he was, and the other boats were with them. A violent squall came up, and waves were breaking over the boat, so it was already filling up. Jesus was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. They woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Quiet, be still." The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?" They were filled with a great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this that whom even the wind and sea obey?"
Mm. Amazing.
I think so. I thought I did a good job too.
Yeah. Father Dufresne, did Jeff get anything wrong?
You just forgot to say the gospel of the Lord at the end of the gospel.
Well, he wasn't
I'm
proclaiming.
not a proclaimer of the gospel. Thank you very much.
Just saying.
What do you think?
No,
You got a
it was
deacon
very
sitting
good.
over here?
Pray about it, Jeff.
Maybe a future deacon.
Maybe.
You could permanently become one.
I mean, I guess I technically could transitionally become one too, but
Could you?
that'd be quite the departure from my current life.
I don't think you could. You have children.
I mean, I'd probably need like the Pope's permission, but I'm guessing technically I could.
Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna wade into that.
I mean, I could become Pope. I'm a baptized male.
That's true.
So if I became Pope, I'd have to at some point speed through deacon process.
We pray about that.
Speaking of deacons, you're a deacon.
Forever, yeah.
Yes.
Also a priest.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the order of Melchizedek.
Just in case there are any
Yes, yes.
in case there are any new viewers or listeners to this unpublished podcast.
How many years have you been a priest?
Deacon. How about a
6
deacon?
years.
6 years.
Yeah,
It's a big day.
So 7 years a deacon?
that's right. Good math.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. I didn't know if you did an extra year in there. or
The
something.
anniversary of my
Red
deacon
shirt.
ordination is actually Earth Day.
Really?
Yeah. There's some kind of liturgical feast, I'm sure, but it was April
Let's go with Earth
22nd.
Day. Nice.
So it's just always Earth Day, which is always makes me
and gun to
chuckle.
my head, I could not have told you what month Earth Day was in, much less the day.
Well, if you had been ordained a deacon on Earth Day and you had looked at the
That's right.
calendar like, which saint is it? Oh, I got Earth Day? Like, come on.
Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Saint Mother Earth. Yes. Perfect.
Francis of Assisi.
You had a good 2-minute drill.
Thank you. I'm done. I'm out.
Oh, good. Well, what are you preaching on this weekend, Father?
Well, I have a question for you guys first.
Yeah.
Do you trust me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
That's good.
I do, because we wouldn't keep inviting you back.
We wouldn't
We
put
didn't.
a microphone in front of your face
Right.
if in front of our webcam.
We're
if
not
we didn't
live, don't
trust
worry.
you, right? Well, you can just edit all this out then.
I mean, we have a
Um,
camera and microphones. You obviously trust us.
Well, that's true. Well, I asked that question because this is really the question that the Lord is asking us in these readings.
Okay.
You know, when you think about all through these, especially the first reading, the Psalm and the Gospel, there's a question of who is God and do I trust him as we listen to these scriptures. And I'm just thinking about the power of the gospel story. Like when you're like, this is one of my favorite stories. I mean, all of us can envision being in a situation where you're thinking, oh, this isn't going to end so good, right? Like
Yeah.
hey, Jesus, we're about to die. Like, wake up, right?
To be fair, this is only one of my favorite gospel readings because Jesus is taking a nap in it. I think if Jesus takes naps, then I can too.
I guess that's one thing we could glean. That's not what I'm preaching on, but that's one, maybe I will preach on that now.
You should.
That
Yeah.
Jesus is taking a nap.
Yeah.
Even
A
Jesus.
little nugget in there.
the disciples are really in this predicament, right? Because they're like, Jesus says, let's go across to the other side. And then there's this storm, and there's not just a storm. It's not like, oh, the sea's kind of rough.
Right.
It's the boat is filling with water. So you're in a boat on the sea, boat's filling with water. Not good, right?
Sure.
Look at the first reading. So we have Job. We all know what happened to Job, right? Like he's a righteous man. He's a God-fearing man. He loves the Lord. And yet all of these terrible things happen to him. And not just like, oh, that's kind of bad. Not just, oh, you're in a boat and things are getting kind of rough. It's like, yeah, all of your kids dead. All of your livestock dead and gone. All of your wealth evaporated. And you have boils on your skin. And even his friends are like, yeah, you probably did something pretty bad, man. Like, if all of this is happening to you, definitely your
What
fault.
did you do?
And Job's like, no, wasn't my fault. And so they're both asking these questions of like, what happens when we get into these situations that we can't control? Right? What happens when we get into these situations that, I didn't choose for the weather to be choppy when I took Jesus out on the Sea of Galilee, right? That's what we're in it, and it's tough, and the outcome is uncertain. And Job, in the section we're getting now, he's kind of getting a talking to from the Lord. The Lord's like, yeah, who are you again? Like, so were you the one that was like, yeah, there's going to be ocean all out here, but it's going to stop here, right? Were you the one? He's referring to like his power as the creator of the universe, right? Which is also in the Psalm. The Psalm is talking about how the Lord has power over these natural powers like the sea, which can cause death. Like, they're dangerous.
Right.
And what's the response to what Job does? What's Job's response to his unmerited suffering, right? He trusts in the Lord, right? He insists on his innocence. So he defends himself, and his friends are like, yeah, you're probably you have a really secret sin that nobody knows about, and God is punishing you.
A real secret sin.
Yeah. And
what a line.
Job's like, yeah, I definitely don't. So he insists on his innocence. He doesn't curse the Lord, because this is actually the whole point of the story of Job. Is Satan talks to God at the beginning. He's like, I bet I could get Job to curse you, so I'm going to do all these bad things to him, and he doesn't. So what does that mean? It means he's trusting in God as the creator, that God is able to control ultimately all of these things that he can't control, right? There's an element of surrender in Job's relationship with the Lord. In the gospel, it gets even a little more real for us, because God isn't just like present and aware that this is happening. Like, Jesus is in this story. He's in the boat that's about to sink, right? And he's asleep, totally at peace, totally secure. But the disciples are definitely not. And so, read again. What's the question that Jesus asked the disciples when they wake him up and he calms everything down?
Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?
Do you not yet have faith? Right? So when we get into these situations of things that are out of our control, suffering, things that are causing fear, things that are causing anxiety, the reason the Lord preserves this story for, like, he does this for the apostles, and he preserves this story for us in Scripture, is because he wants us to know that the way to get through those storms is to trust, is to have faith, right? And I think to flesh this out a little bit, the way a lot of the saints and fathers of the church have understood the boat that's in this storm is, right, it's the boat of Peter. And what is the boat of Peter? The bark of Peter, which is just an old-fashioned word for a boat, right? It's the church. And so
is this a parable, or was this
is
actually Jesus on a boat?
No, this is an actual story, but it's been understood allegorically by saints and fathers of the church as, this is an image of what happens when the church goes through rough times.
Okay.
Like, when the church goes through rough waters, what do we do?
Can I jump in and ask like a clarifying question here? So what should we do to understand the difference between, okay, trust in Jesus, trust and surrender, that's one piece, but then also like just blind negligence, like because if you're in a boat that's sinking and you can do something to like not make the boat sink, then you should probably do that thing, versus just like standing by and saying, all right, we're in a storm, Jesus is going to take care of it.
Well, this is why for us, this story is the apostles have already done everything they can do, right? They're like bailing out the boat. They're not just standing there afraid. Like these guys are
Yeah.
fishermen, right?
Okay, so they're
So
doing their thing. It's
They're
not like
they're doing their thing, but they're also like, "Hey, Lord, why are you sleeping?" Right? And this is where we get to
Jesus, bro. What are you doing?
this is where we get to this is a lesson for us in the spiritual life, right? Because when we're doing everything we can do, when we're praying every day, when we're keeping the precepts of the church, we're going to confession, when we're doing our best,
Sure.
right? And things are still not going well. I mean, this is Job, right? He's done nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not going well. And so what do we do in those moments? We trust that the Lord is greater than all of these things, that are all of these challenges that we're facing, right? Like the spiritual lesson in this is when we often fall into like, oh, the Lord's just not with me right now, right? Or like God feels so far away, or it seems like God's not listening when I pray, right? A lot of times the doubt, the discouragement creeps in when we're facing circumstances we can't control. And I think this speaks very powerfully to us in our moment in the church right now. Like everybody seems to be looking for the one thing that's going to put them in control. This is kind of what I've observed in my pastoral ministry, also in my own heart and my own life.
Yeah.
Is so many of the ways that we seek for control are actually counterproductive spiritually. And
Can you give us an example?
Well, the example that comes to mind most readily is, when you encounter a real resistance to change. So let's say something like,
So like a parish that changes mass times and people like lose their minds and are storming the castle, and
a parish that changes
yeah.
mass times. I think when you see a resistant to change, like any change at all is bad. Like we just want things like they are now. That's kind of the opposite of Christianity, right? Catholicism is about being like in a continual conversion. So that's usually a red flag spiritually, that we're where we're comfortable, we're where we have control, we think everything is calm, and so we want to stay there, right? But so we're not like going across to the other side with Jesus. We're not braving this storm, right? I was actually thinking when you hear a lot of people complain about some people complain about, oh, the Holy Father said this and I don't like that, or a bishop said this and I don't like that, or can you believe that such and such a priest said this and I don't like. There's so much anger that's kind of stoked up right now, and people perceive a crisis in the church. Like there aren't as many people at mass. Like people don't seem to believe, a large group of people seem to not believe in the Eucharist, or seem to turn away from Catholic teaching. Like, so how are we going to fix this? And that's when we fall into this kind of self-reliance a lot of times. So a lot of movements today in the church struggle with this. I think for some people it's like, well, we're going to do this by securing a place in the church for these groups of people who have been marginalized. Or for some people it's like, well, if we just made the mass like this, everything will be perfect, right? Well, you can kind of see, well, if I were doing this in any other area of my life, I would be like, oh, you're just feel a little out of control, and you're trying to feel back under control, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what these scriptures call us to, I don't want to get caught up in like, what are all the problems or what are all the struggles? Like, what is the storm? But what the scripture is actually calling us to is surrender in the Lord. Anxiety is a struggle that a lot of people have in their spiritual lives right now. Even just like naturally, people just are feeling anxious about a lot of things. there's a quote from St. Alphonsus Liguori. I wish it was shared with me by a brother priest, and I've been trying to hunt it down in his writings little by little. But he says, "Be anxious about nothing except sin." Like, be anxious about nothing except sin, right? And the one that I actually the words that I actually do have a hold of. I don't know. Have you all ever heard of the Surrender Novena?
Yes.
Yeah.
Heard of it, yes.
There's the Surrender Novena was composed by a priest who was a contemporary of Padre Pio, Don Dolindo Ruotolo. And that novena, for a while, I was just praying that novena every 9 days over and over and over and over again, because the words, they just seem counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It's like, it's words that the Lord spoke to Don Dolindo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asking him for this complete surrender. He's like, it just says, don't worry about anything. Like, and the words that you repeat over and over again in that novena are, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. And I really think this story, when you put yourself in that boat and it's filling up with water, you've done everything you can do, and the reality is you're just not more powerful than the sea when there's a storm. Like, I think that's the hard part about, no, there's got to be something I can do.
Right.
When you're in a position like that and you're up against the forces of nature, you're just smaller. You're not going to win. Like, you're not going to be stronger.
Yeah.
But there is someone who is. And he just wakes up and says, like, as soon as they call on him, he just wakes up and says, quiet, be still. Right.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't question, like, it's not like, no, this is how you bail out a boat. Okay. You take the bucket like this. You do that. He doesn't correct them on, like, now guys, if we'd stayed a little bit closer to shore, this wouldn't have been, he doesn't correct them on, like, their sailing expertise. He questions their faith. And so it's like, yes, this the situation, you know, if there's a challenge you're going through in your life, like if you're in a position like Job and dominoes are just falling and you don't know why, or if you're anxious about, like, the state of the church or the state of the country or the state of the world, like, yes, there are a lot of things that you can do, like be excellent at what you do, seek virtue, right? Be holy, seek holiness. But ultimately, the first and most important thing we need to do is surrender ourselves to the Lord, so that we can recognize that he is the one that's more powerful than the storms. He's the only one that can calm the storm. That's the point the Psalm's making. That's the point God's making when he talks to Job. Like, there's only one person qualified for that, and that's the one who made the sea, right? Who created the wind.
Yeah.
So
I think, like, as you're talking through here, I'm thinking about, like, here we also see the disciples in another example here of, like, obviously, like, they do trust him because they're there, like, they're following him, they get in the boat,
they followed his instructions,
yeah.
right?
But then, like, I also love that, like, I love these moments where they don't distinguish who said something, right? Because it was, teacher, do you not care that we're perishing, right? Like, just imagine being the disciple who cracks and says that. And then like, to your point of, like, Jesus took naps, he also wakes up angry from naps, which I like. And, like, I feel that for sure. But I like that he just wakes up and immediately yells at the wind and the sea and just rebukes them, and then rebukes the disciples in many ways and says, like, what are you doing? Like, you really think this is gonna happen? I was, like, struck though, thinking, like, and I genuine, like, you guys ever been in a boat that's, like, filling up with water? It's a scary thing. Like, I was reading this and I was like,
Been a paddle boat once.
yeah, I know, but, like, I know, but, like, I'm talking about, like, a pontoon boat. But I remember we were on a family vacation. We had, like, 8 or 9 people on a pontoon boat, not overloaded by any stretch, but we were up in Michigan on, like, a very large lake. So we were on one end of the lake. Weather was perfect. It was nice. It was sunny. By the time we got down to the other end of the lake, there was, like, a storm coming off Lake Michigan, and it's starting to hit the end of so all of a sudden waves are getting real high, and, like, we're trying to get turned around, and spray is splashing over the front of the boat. And then all of a sudden, like, nose of the pontoon dives under a wave, and, like, big wave of water comes through and breaks the door on the front of the boat, and like there's just water all over the pontoon boat, and we're getting it figured out. But my nephew was on the boat. Sammy is one of the most hysterical humans I've ever known. But Sammy just looks at me and goes, "This is the worst day of my life." Sammy's 7, and like but he said, "This is the worst day of my life." And I was struck when we were talking about this gospel. I was reading this, thinking like, but that is that feeling. Like, I was like, oh, I'm reassuring everyone on the boat, we're gonna be fine, we're gonna be fine. But I was kind of like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, we gotta figure this out. I don't think it'll sink all the way, but like, who knows? Like, trying to get it, like, you're in that panic. So I think it speaks to our spiritual lives too, where it's like we're doing great and we're walking the path and we're doing this, and then but like you encounter that adversity, that thing, and immediately it's like, I'm ready to say, do you not even care? Right? Like, do you not care that I'm perishing? Do you not care that I'm hurting in this moment?
I think there's that other piece where it's like on the other side of, Jesus making these remarks, the winds died down and there's a great calm. And I do think that one of the greatest ways that we can know that God's there in our lives and like is truly present and that we're doing his will is when we have peace and calm in our lives. That surrender novena is near and dear to my wife and I. We've prayed it several times, especially when there's been a storm, right? And we commit to praying that or praying for surrender and decisions that we're not quite sure how to make as a family. But that peace and that calm that comes on the other side of that is truly where we know that like God's at work in our lives. But you don't get that if you don't have the surrender too. If you're still trying to control everything, if you're still paling water out of the boat, then it's still going to be panicking.
Yeah. I also, this is not serious at all, but as you were talking about like it being Peter's boat, I was like, well, there it is. You got a big rock in the boat. That's gonna I thought it was funny too. Thank you.
Well done.
Yep.
All right. Ready for some dumb questions?
I am.
I will surrender to your dumb questions.
We'll see. Some are dumber than others. Okay.
I'll take care of everything.
You will.
Oh.
Okay, Deacon, first dumb question.
Did you call me Deacon?
Have we ever told you this story? Do you want to tell that story?
Sure.
It's one of my funniest
I think I've told
stories.
you this before, but we were at NCYC, and I was walking behind Father Jerry Bird, and there's like high school kids there, and like somebody just goes, "Hey, Father," and he didn't know I was behind him, and Father Jerry just goes, "Hi," and I go, "He's actually a deacon," and the guy was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and then Father Jerry just lost. It's so mad,
but like goes into a scramble. He's like, "No, I'm not I am," and like,
but I am a deacon, but I'm also a priest.
Just set him into a total scramble.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, but you should do the same. Start introducing your priest friends as deacons.
It's always hard around ordination because you like want to say deacon and you're like, no, he's a priest now. You call him father. Yeah. Like,
it's even hard now. And then it gets confusing. Now I love that they're doing it, but like now that all of our archdiocesan seminarians are in collars,
everyone
the ones
over
that are
first theology.
Yeah, over first theology, like that alone, that just also is I can't get my head around. And I'm always just trying to figure out how to introduce myself to that person. And yeah.
Should wear a pin or something.
Yeah.
Like a little lapel pin that says First Theology.
Maybe some like a ranking on their sleeves.
Chevrons.
Yeah, chevrons. This is perfect. I think we came up with something here.
Seminarians get 0 chevrons.
Yes. Or put them in a different color. Yeah. Okay. We've been talking to all of our priests, our guests here, like it's assignment time. Did I hear correctly that you're now only the pastor of one parish?
This is the first.
Did you get the best of, like, every other priest we're talking to has just picked up extra duties? Not to say you haven't in here, but did I hear that true that you went from 2 parishes to 1?
On July 3rd at noon, I will only be pastor of 1 parish now. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I don't know how you swindled that, but good for you.
Well, I serve at the pleasure of the Archbishop.
It's perfect.
So that's what Archbishops asked me to do, and anytime it was crazy being pastor of 2 parishes.
Yeah.
It's been there's a huge learning curve. It's really stretched me, and I think hopefully I've grown a little bit from it. But yeah,
I think so.
I am looking forward to being able to focus on one parish for sure.
But that being said, so you've lost a parish, but you've also lost a roommate. And so you're still going to be living in Holy Rosary, but Father McCarthy is going to be moving to the seminary. So does this?
That's right. He's going back to seminary.
Yes, he's going to
college
diaconate formation.
Not even first theology.
Yeah, not even first theology. It's like -4. But so in that move, you'll stay at Holy Rosary, but you get the whole place to yourself. Are you going to switch to top bunk now?
Just going to live on the deck.
You guys do have a pretty nice deck up there, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's got a good view of the city. So
are you saying that we should host a live podcast there?
Absolutely.
And now that it's your party crib, you can.
It's a little bit windy.
Terrace pod.
Yeah.
Well, we've got other mics for windy days.
We do.
Okay.
Perfect. And even if we don't,
you
Scott,
all
this
are
is a great
invited.
excuse to buy more mics.
You all are invited.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Podcast on the deck.
No, I just wanted to talk. Like, are you obviously like? Is this 2 years now? You've had 2 parishes?
Just one.
Just one. And you said like reflecting on that, like what are you most excited about now? Kind of returning to just being able to focus at St. Philip Neri, which will be your assignment.
Well, there's something so important about presence as a priest, right? And when it's not that difficult to physically go between 2 different church campuses, but when you're managing 2 sets of bank accounts, you're managing 2 separate staffs, you're managing 2 liturgical schedules. I've been super grateful for Father Oscar, my associate, through the whole thing, because it just wouldn't have been possible without him.
Right.
But to have one of all of those things means there's more time for you to be present with your people. And that's what I've grown to value most as a pastor. Like I do strive to be a better administrator someday when I have time to learn to be a better administrator. Like I really want to continue to grow as a teacher, as a confessor, as a presider and a preacher. But the greatest gift, aside from celebrating Mass and the sacraments as a priest, is like the relationships that you develop with your people. Like they're like, I really am their father in real personal ways. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is being able to be more present to my people, because I'm only needing to be present at one place.
That's perfect. That's great. I'm happy for you, because I know how much you care about your ministry, and I know how much you care about your parish and your people. So I think that's great. I wish every priest only had one assignment. That'd be pretty awesome. But
let's get some more priests.
Yeah. Even though you are bucking the trend of like, it seems like all of our guests have just gotten like increased roles and assignments. And so maybe we just need to remind the Archbishop that you're on our podcast, and then you'll be a vicar or something.
Maybe. If you could get me to associate pastor, like
we can get you like downgraded.
Just go down.
Associate's the dream, right?
Yeah. Right after like spiritual director at a seminary. I'm just kidding.
It'd be good to get a good one. Okay.
They have a great one.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Vicar for podcasts.
What?
Vicar for podcast.
I don't want to be that. That would be a lot of work.
Hmm.
Have to crack down on all the crazy podcasts out there.
Just focus on, you just be on ours permanently.
Oh, vicar for being on podcasts, not
Yes.
monitoring the podcast.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Great.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Here's a question that this came up. My family and I were lucky enough a couple months ago to host some net missionaries that were traveling through town, stayed with us, a hysterical group of humans that I just sat and laughed with. One of the things that came up, this was their question, or it wasn't even a question. They were just saying it as a flat out statement, but I want to get your thoughts on this. Their argument was that a kazoo
Mm-hmm.
is a more appropriate instrument
I've
to-
heard this.
to play at mass and in liturgy than a guitar, because
It's
the
a wind
germ
instrument.
says that wind instruments are to be preferred over. So kazoo mass or guitar mass, you must choose what is more liturgically appropriate.
Well,
Why didn't I save this for Father James?
the-
These are the I gotta
the
find some way
question
worse to
of
watch.
liturgical appropriateness is not just based on the kind of instrument. It's also based on the value, or I shouldn't say the value, the beauty and the quality of the instrument, right? So
the nicest kazoo, the most beautiful and nicest kazoo being played by a professional.
Beauty is
Or-
in the eye
yeah,
of the
guitar
beholder.
mass, way more
Guitar
than a kazoo
mass.
mass. Never a kazoo mass. So
being a
think about
guitarist
this.
yourself, right?
So being a guitarist myself, kind of.
And lead vocalist.
If you think about this, do you know the word in Spanish for guitar?
No.
Guitarra, right? And
What's kazoo in
so
Spanish?
if you, I don't know.
Great question, Scott.
Hopefully they don't have a word for kazoo. But the if you look in the Bible, if you look in the Latin translation of the Psalms,
Mhm.
the Latin word for harp is cithara, which sounds a lot like guitarra, right?
Yeah.
Because Spanish and Latin are related. So
But
the
harp's also
guitar,
string instruments not allowed.
the guitar is, well, the harp is the most ancient liturgical instrument because it was used to accompany
The
the
angels.
Psalms.
Yeah.
Right. So a guitar, you could really look at that as a modified harp.
So you're saying the germ is wrong.
The germ doesn't say
No,
that it
I
can't
know.
be played.
I'm just
No. I think I think a contextual reading of the germ
defending it, Scott.
would also
This is where I get
render
spun
I'm just
up.
trying to up the germ meter. See how many
No
times you can say germ
kazoos.
in the
no kazoos.
No
That's
kazoos?
my take.
Okay.
Yeah.
No kazoos.
You,
Great.
you heard it here. Father Dufresne said he would prefer guitar mass over a kazoo.
Over the
mass.
most beautiful kazoo.
we've got our clip.
Yep. Father Dufresne prefers
You're gonna
guitar.
start an all
that
set for
quote card?
Sunday clips.
Yep. Hot takes.
Great. Mom's gonna love this one.
All set for hot takes. This is great. All right, those were the questions I had.
All right.
Not that bad.
No, not too bad. What do you got going on this weekend? Anything fun?
It's
Oh, I did have another
with
question.
leaving a parish.
Are you
There's a
going-
lot of
Sorry.
with leaving a parish. There's a lot of parties. Like, and
Mhm.
we have staff members retiring and 2 priests leaving St. Mary's, and so we're just partying it up for the
Nice.
next few weekends.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did you go to Italian Fest last week?
Yeah. Italian Fest is one of the most glorious festivals in all of Indianapolis. So
Yeah.
I won't miss it.
Great.
Can't miss it.
All right.
Holy
Anything else?
cannoli.
Yeah.
I forgot the other thing I was going to talk. I don't even know that I have a question, but you've got a pretty awesome priest support group, and it's good that when priests are sitting around and they need to support each other, and they're having that fellowship, that what they think would be best to help them is to call Jeff Traylor for advice. And so I was lucky enough to get a call from Father McCarthy and yourself and Father Meyer and Father John Hollowell. But I wanted to say, like, in reflecting on this phone call, and like my cheeks hurt from just smiling and laughing for 25 minutes while the focus of the conversation was Father Meyer and Father McCarthy trying to get Father Dufresne to wrap his truck in an image of
yes.
ours, of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But the best part of the whole thing is, like, in this group in this chaos of Father Meyer and Father McCarthy trying to convince me of all these things, and Father Dufresne being like, I'm not going to cover my truck in this. I'm not going to ask my parish to pay for this, and all this back and forth. All of a sudden I just hear Father Hollowell say, can't we just let Jeff go be with his family? And that's why I appreciate Father Hollowell. I just hear that in the background, and then I hear Father Meyer go, yeah, he's right. Okay, we're gonna let you go, Jeff.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Well, you all, I know this is the dumb questions part, but I'm starting to lose count of all the times that I say to priests, like, hey, where should I go to talk to someone about this? And they're like, why don't you call Scott and Jeff? So you maybe don't like that, or maybe
No, that's like an incredible compliment.
Yeah.
And
your go-to guys. So
Yeah. We like to say that our focus is to make ministry and evangelization easier. If that's helping
Yeah.
priests or parishes or pastoral leaders out with whatever it is, we're happy to do it.
So so we'll
So
get
you
to
can get
work
back
on
to
that
doing
truck
the-
wrap.
Free stuff. All right.
yes.
Father, thank you so much. Let's go wrap your truck.
Awesome. Let's
But let's
do it.
wrap this podcast.
Yeah, we're rappers. Bye, y'all.
It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.